Lesson 6, Flexibility. A skier on the slopes knows that he has to be ready to turn left or right as the lay of the land, as the different moguls that appear make necessary. And so it is that in life also we find that we have to learn how to change direction according to the needs of the moment. And any leader who is incapable of doing so, who feels that he's committed himself to a certain way and has to continue to go that way because it's always been done, it's always worked, whatever the reasons might be, he will find himself very likely to fall if the directions force actually a change. Now, how is it possible to be flexible? Well, a skier can change direction if he isn't committed to turning one way when he suddenly finds he has to turn another way. And in life, you will find that if you're not committed emotionally, mentally, dogmatically, whatever it might be, to going in one direction, you will then be able, when the new direction comes, to go in that direction. And how can you do that? By being centered in yourself. We talked about that in the first course. A skier who is centered in his spine, who moves outward from that center, finds that at a moment's notice he can turn left or right. The more you are centered in yourself and not in your work, the more you are centered in your inner reality and not in anything that you are trying to accomplish outwardly, the more you will be able to always come up smiling no matter what happens. Remember that as long as you have your own sanity and your own health, your own life, you could lose everything and start all over again. It reminds me of a famous story of a miner in Colorado who came home. He had discovered, after years of working fruitlessly, he had discovered a very rich vein, and he'd sold this mine and came back with millions of dollars. And his wife, in order to make sure that nobody stole that money, put the dollars in the stove. They'd never used the stove. They didn't have the money to heat themselves. Well, unfortunately, she went to bed and her husband got roaring drunk with a group of friends. He was just wanting to celebrate. When they came home, the first thing he did was light the stove. Everything went up in smoke. And she was so horrified when she found out what had happened in the morning. And he just said, "Never mind, honey, I'll find another mine." And you know, that very same day he found it. Well, if he'd sat there grieving, he might not have found it, somebody else might have found it. As long as you have your own strength, you will be able to start again. Look at Abraham Lincoln's a wonderful example, because he was defeated for office every time he tried until he finally was elected president. And if he had said, "Oh, it's no good," and if he had just become completely hypnotized by his failure, we would not have had perhaps the greatest president since Washington that this country has known. Don't worry about your failures. Don't worry about if it should fail. Don't be so hooked into a minor victory that you lose the possibility of a major victory. Always sort of, whatever you're doing, go back into yourself, stand back a little bit from the project and view it. You know, it's like a painter who he's painting a large canvas. In order to see it in proper perspective, he has to stand back from it. As long as he's too close, he can't see how what he's working on right now will relate to the rest of his canvas. The same thing with life. Unless we can stand back a little bit, we lose our sense of perspective. We lose our sense of proportion. And we may indeed win here, but lose in the long run. So when people come along with some new idea that might cause you to rethink everything, be flexible enough to listen. Just think whether it might be a good idea after all. With flexibility, you will see that you will always be able to take the best opportunity when it comes.